Hello, welcome to another edition of Critical Conversations, live from Denver. It is Friday night. Hey, critics. We are back for another Rockin' Sockin' episode of Critical Conversations. I am joined by my beautiful wife, Melissa.
Hello.
All right, and yep, looks like all is well in the world of sound and video. As always, we are very thankful for the audio-visual gods are blessing our broadcast. And hi, everybody. Ooh, life goes on, I suppose. I am waiting for my marks on my latest essay that I turned in on a case study on my recovering from coercive control class, and I have another essay I have to write for my comparative contexts coercive control class. So that's what I'm working on right now. And so school carries on, and all the lecturing and everything is done. So it's really just kind of wrapping up these papers and then getting on to my dissertation, and that's the update on that. Okay, let's see here. Hey, everybody. All you critics out there, I love my critics. You guys are the best. And actually, these phones. Actually, I should say that it's just so sensitive, this thing. Our critics.
Yeah.
Because this show's kind of our show. And in fact, now I'm going to pick back up on the call-in line here because you'll have to give me a second. Because the phone disconnected, of course. Now, this week, we are talking chronic illness. And there are a couple shows that we've kind of had in the pipeline sort of thinking about prepping for quite some time, and this is one of them. There's another one, too, which I'm also looking forward to, that Mel is going to be leading the charge on. And by that, I mean she is the one who has done the bulk of the research, and this is of high interest to her and me, of course. So I'm giving her the floor this week. Now, I have to get this call-in line back on play first, so give me 1 second to do that, because we're going to hear the little call-in studio thing.
Some boops.
And
enter your 6-digit.
There we go.
Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and
Excellent.
can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
Well, I'm always glad when I can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Robot.
Yes, exactly. All right, so I should be hooked back up again. And yes, we are there hosting the show. So you can call in 984-214-4154. And I have to have a little... I guess, I don't know if I'm using this right, mea culpa, a little, oh gosh, I screwed up, a little eating crow right now on the 7 cam this week. And not by choice, 7 hid from me. We went to get it, and he was behind the couch, and it was dark. And I had my phone, and I was trying to get 7 cam on both different directions, and the idea of bringing a light out, and, you know... And he was kind of beyond reach. He was being difficult, and as he is sometimes. And while I'm laying a lot of blame on him, I also, should have prepped earlier, so it's my bad too. And so I take full responsibility for the lack of 7 cam. So sorry about that, guys. But he will return in full force next week. All right, that all being said. Okay, so I think we've set the stage here. And we're going to get into chronic illnesses, and and so on calls coming in, please direct them toward her this week as much as possible. I believe that we might be getting a call or two later in the show, but if you're calling in, I want to feed this machine this week. So, all right, that all being said, over to you.
Okay, so... we're going to talk about chronic illness, chronic conditions. As you know, I have a few. So just to get started, the U.S. National Center for Health Statistics defines a chronic disease as a disease lasting 3 months or longer. So, and most chronic illnesses are, not curable, and that's why they're chronic.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that was like the defining time frame on it. I've never been sick for 3 months, so
You're lucky.
I know. I know that. I'm very aware of how lucky I am on that. Now, I do have chronic conditions, but not illness.
Right.
My problem is my bone structure. So anyway, please continue.
All right. So generally incurable and ongoing chronic disease affects approximately 133 million Americans, representing more than 40% of the total population of this country. And this was an estimate. This was from a couple years ago, but they were, and I couldn't find out if this has come to fruition or not, but they were thinking that by 2020, that number is projected to grow to an estimated 157 million, with 81 million having multiple conditions, so having more than one chronic problem.
Wow. That's just U.S.
It's just the U.S.
Damn. 81 million. That's a good chunk. That's a third.
Yeah, and that's people having two or more. Like,
wow.
The 157 million, well, it's 133 million when this was written and projected to be 157 million now. That's if you have at least one.
Yeah, it's more than a third. That's not good.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, some examples of chronic illness, of course, are Alzheimer's or dementia, arthritis, asthma, cancer, COPD, Crohn's disease, cystic fibrosis, diabetes, epilepsy, heart disease, things like HIV/AIDS, mood disorders like bipolar or depression, things like multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease, and tons more. But that's some of the most common ones. So, yeah. So, one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is because I have recently found out that I get to have another chronic problem to deal with in my life. Yay! It's kind of a rare condition, but it's called gastroparesis. About 200,000 people come down with it a year in the U.S. And it may be related to my diabetes. It may not. They're not sure. But basically what happens with gastroparesis is there's a nerve called the vagus nerve, and it gets damaged, and so it slows down your digestion, which means that you can't eat certain things because they'll just come back up tomorrow morning. You'll be in a lot of pain, nausea. From what I've read, it sounds like I have a more mild case because I've read some things on these Facebook groups that I belong to now with it that are just scary. But basically now I can't eat certain foods. I have to be very careful about my diet. I can only eat small meals. Like instead of eating 3 big meals a day, I have to eat 4 to 6 small ones, little ones. And I can't eat, it's weird. Some of the stuff you can't do, like most raw vegetables and raw fruit I can't have because it's too much fiber, and fiber is hard to break down. So I have to like puree those or have them cooked or mixed into things. So
and always peeled. Right? Always, even an apple or a pear, you know, you gotta peel it. You want to break it down to more like puree or easy to digest.
Yeah. It's like being a baby again. But yeah, so it's restricting me in a lot of ways. I have lost a little weight though, but so I have to kind of learn how to eat differently all over again. You know, I had to do that when I was first diagnosed with diabetes in the 90s before they had a lot of the types of insulin that they do now that work a lot better. I had R and NPH in the 90s, and that was, you had to be really specific about your diet, and I haven't had to do that in a really long time, so it's going to be, it's been a big change. But let me see if I covered everything with it.
Well, just to be clear, we're not going to get into all the gory details, but this is not just a matter of what you might hear sometimes with people being a little snarky about dietary restrictions and, oh, you know, gluten-free and, oh, I have to be so sensitive. It's not that. This is super real, and the consequences of this are super real, in that there are real reactions that occur if you do not give your body what it needs in the way that it needs it now. And this was a real mystery for us for a little while trying to figure this out. So so we're glad that we have some handle on this.
Yeah, the symptoms you might want to be concerned about are if you're not able to keep food down, if you're having a lot of stomach pain and nausea, and you're just throwing up a lot, and lightheadedness, that kind of stuff. And then the way they test for it is they do a gastric emptying scan, which means you get to eat radioactive eggs.
It's true.
And then they take pictures of your stomach with an x-ray machine every couple hours, well, every hour and then every 2 hours, to see where the food is at in your stomach, and if it's not getting out of there fast enough, that's how they know. So that's what they knew with me. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to say on that, on myself. I'm not going to go on and on about it all night. But yeah. Oh, we lost it again.
Yeah. I'll handle this. You carry on.
Okay. So back to some of the statistics. About half of all adults have a chronic condition. And approximately 8% of children ages 5 to 17 were reported by their parents to have limited activities due to at least one chronic disease or disability. So we got a lot of people here having this issue. And more people are living with not just one chronic illness, such as diabetes, heart disease, or depression, but with 2 or more conditions. Almost a third of the population is now living with multiple chronic conditions. So, like we talked about before, it's a lot. There's a lot of people. Some of them are preventable, some of them are not. Some of them would be a little more preventable if we had better health care in this country, but that's a whole other thing. So I couldn't find a more recent statistic, but in 2009, 7 out of 10 deaths in the U.S. were due to chronic diseases. Heart disease, cancer, and stroke account for more than half of all deaths each year. And a lot of those things, well, not cancer, but a lot of the heart disease and the stroke, that's something, if you're diabetic, you're more at risk for those kind of things. You got a call?
Yeah.
All right.
We're going to take this call, yeah. Oh, no, I lost it.
Oh, no.
Okay, let me try. Because that might have been because my hosting went out, so I'm actually trying a call back. Never tried that before.
We're trying new things tonight.
We are trying new things tonight. Let's see if this works or not. I don't know if it's going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Henny.
Hi, Melissa. It's Henny. Hi, sweetheart.
Hey.
Hey. I wanted to just say hello. And Chris, I never get to see or hear, I hear you, but I don't get to see you. And I miss you too, because I didn't get to hear that last week while I was on the phone. And I wanted you guys to know I miss you both. And this is such an interesting topic. Melissa, I'm so, your statistics are wonderful. You really are very well researched in chronic illness, and I know that you suffer from chronic illness, I wanted to ask you about your diabetes. I know that you take insulin, and usually that was referred to as juvenile diabetes or type 1 diabetes. Is that what you have?
Yeah, I'm type 1, and they kind of got rid of the juvenile diabetes thing anymore because there are people even in their 70s getting diagnosed with type 1 now. So it's kind of, they just call it type 1 and type 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for teaching me that, because actually that's the way that I was brought up. The people that I knew around me and family members had it when they were like juveniles. They were, like 10 and 12 and, like that. So that's, I guess, where that came from, that juvenile diabetes. I didn't realize that you could actually get type 1 diabetes. Is that what you call it, Melissa?
Yeah. Type 1 is what they call it now, just to clear things up. And there's actually more than 2, but type 1 and type 2 are the most common. I can't remember all of them right now, but there's other ones. There's another one that's very similar to type 1, but it kind of acts a little differently. And, there's gestational, where the type 2 comes in when you're pregnant, but sometimes goes away after you have the kid. Stuff like that happens too.
Look at that. I didn't know that. Right. Okay, well, so that was what I had, knew, and I'm glad that you taught me that. I actually did a little research, Melissa, about mental illness and chronic disease. Mm-hmm. And what I found out was that scientists have yet to determine if having a chronic disease increases depression, mm-hmm. or if depression increases chronic disease in obtaining it. Yeah. And I thought that was very interesting. Mm-hmm. And then there was a list, Melissa, of the similarities. And although they worded it differently, darling, to me it's the same. It was basically the same. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had family history for both, stressful life conditions for mental health, and in chronic disease, they called it environmental factors. Yeah. They had illegal drug use in mental health, and under chronic disease, they put alcohol use, tobacco use. I mean, that's, whether it's illegal or not, it's drug use. Mm-hmm. And they had family history in both. And it was just very interesting how the two of them kind of coincide with one another.
Yeah. And the addictions can be, you're masking the mental illness because you're taking the drugs and trying to fix it that way,
Right. Of course.
It can become a vicious cycle. Yeah, exactly. And you make a great point bringing that up, Henny, because just from just because I have to plug in on this, as from a critical thinking standpoint, right? One, correlation is not necessarily causation. So just because two things exist at the same time, they might have something to do with each other. And in some contexts, or in some cases, you might find they're actually disrelated phenomena. The depression is one thing and the chronic illness is another, and they're really not causatively related to one another, is another possibility. So studying this is really difficult in terms of determining that. It's a real good point.
Yeah. It really was very interesting. And the statistics that Melissa said too. I mean, the way they put it from my research was like a circle, and it was 25% was under the mental health part, and then the other 25 under the chronic part, and under the chronic part was heart disease, cardiovascular disease. And the other 25 that was the mental part, the mental illness part, had homicide, suicide, and other environmental factors. Wow. So it's very interesting when you research things. And like you said, Chris, it's very amazing how the causativeness is very much like that, you know?
Exactly. Because now...
listen, go ahead.
Well, I was just also going to point out that, one way of looking at and framing depression, anxiety, and this particular condition is through a medical diagnosis lens, as is being done here, and consider it a chronic illness or a chronic condition. On the other hand, what I'm learning right now also is that in psychiatry, they are reframing these issues as without using a medical model and calling it an illness. And they are looking at, various environmental factors, various conditions in your life, social circles, job, family, all of it. You really want to break down and look at all of that and sort of figure out, various components of that might contribute to power differentials, threats. I mean, there's different ways of analyzing this than just looking at that as an illness too, which is really helping a lot of people to break out of certain aspects of that. So I thought I'd bring that up.
Well, and it is stressful to be ill and chronically ill and have problems all the time. So that can definitely, I'm sure, help lead to depression and things like that. Maybe not other mental stuff, but definitely depression. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
See, it doesn't devalue or take away from the experience or the condition in terms of what labels we're giving it. What we're really just trying to clarify is, how do we go about treating it? How do we go about dealing with this so that we can lessen, reduce, or, you know, potentially in some cases even make it go away, or at least make the person more capable of dealing with the issues themselves. So that's the only reason. That's the only reason I bring that up.
Good point.
You know? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Melissa. I love you guys. I adore you and miss you. And
Awesome.
you know, fluff 7 for me when you get a chance. And I'm going and I'm going to go back to learning. Thank you so much, guys. You're wonderful.
Oh,
Thanks,
you're very
Henny.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Good night, guys. Bye.
All right.
All right. Cool. Good. So that was our call in the queue. Again, 984-214-4154.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to Melissa about this stuff. And Mel, you may continue. Oh, and by the way, Melissa's mic is not quieter. Her voice is.
Yeah. Sorry.
I've actually got mine turned down less than hers. But I will endeavor to
help that out. All right.
Oh, and somebody asked you a question earlier, which I thought was a good one.
Oh, okay.
Let me bring this forward because Nick asked, I'm sorry to hear you have this condition, Melissa. My question is, in your support circles, do you find people flocking to alternative medicine and new age remedies?
Not really in the diabetes circles, because we're, you know, especially those of us that have had it a while, we're well aware that none of that is going to work for it. When you're type 1, it's insulin. That's what's going to work for it, you know. And, you know, just balancing your life the right way. But I don't know. Like, I haven't seen anything on the gastroparesis stuff yet, but I haven't even been diagnosed a full month yet, even though this has been going on since January. But that's, you know, now that I have a name for it and I'm looking into it. I think I've heard, you know, of people using stuff like tea, like ginger tea to kind of relax your stomach and stuff like that kind of stuff. But I haven't really heard of like real super new agey, you know.
Nobody's doing magnets to cure their gastroparesis
Yeah,
yet.
I'm sure there's probably people out there that have tried it, because who has, you know, every disease someone's tried something silly for. But
Well, it is actually, I mean, we can say this. You have been watching a lot of videos and a lot of YouTubers or doctors via YouTube are explaining the condition. People who have it have been talking about it, and she's been watching a lot of that. So I'll say, you know, that a lack of that in the stuff you have been diving into and looking into is probably a good sign.
yeah,
With this particular illness, at least. You know, not to say that the New Agers and I'll call them the Stone Agers.
yeah.
The crystal people.
Now I know I've seen stuff when it comes to mental illness though about new age stuff. Like, oh my god.
What have you seen with that?
You know, it's just like, oh, just, you know, get your spirituality right or something like that, you know, or like, oh god, I'm trying to think of a good example. I feel like I've seen them, but I can't pull them up. But that's one of my problems with my head.
It's okay, baby.
But yeah, like, that's where I would say there's probably going to be more likely to see that stuff is in the mental health community. Because I know, like, I have a friend who has bipolar, and some lady told him he just needs to read the Bible more.
Yeah, we do see far too much of that. You know, there's a difference between going to a religious-based counseling but from a trained therapist, even if they're bringing it from a religious angle, I would have more faith in that, so to speak, than some, you know, online believer tossing advice at you.
Exactly. And I've gotten advice about diabetes from non-diabetics that was bad, you know, like, oh, you should just go on this, you know, lettuce diet or something. I mean, something ridiculous like that, you know, and you're just like, that's not going to make me stop having to need insulin.
Exactly. And no, I'm not giving her touch assist. Idiots. No, I'm just kidding, but that was funny. Yeah, no touch assist. Now, what do you think about, or what do you know about fake chronic diseases like chronic Lyme and leaky gut, etc.?
I don't really know too much about leaky gut, and I've heard a little about Lyme disease, but I don't know enough about it to really make too much of a comment. But I think people that do make up, whether it's a fake illness or a real illness, and they just pretend to have that real illness, it's probably something mental going on, an intention sort of thing, I would think, like, and I don't mean that in a, like, they're 3 and need attention way. It's just, for some reason, they're lacking, they feel like they're lacking what they need in life, and they think, oh, I'm going to get attention if I have this disease, kind of like with Munchausen's disease with the mom. Moms, or maybe sometimes dads, but moms usually start doing things like poisoning their kids to make them sick so that mom can get attention. So I would think that with people faking illnesses, that'd probably be a similar sort of thing as.
Yeah. I think you're going to find that rubs up against, this word just, I cringe almost now. I've used the word so many times, and I've tried to be correct, and I've failed at this sometimes. But I think you are dealing with some ego/narcissism type issues there, at least with a certain subset of people who have these kind of fake chronic conditions. In other words, you can't find a physical abnormality or reason for this condition, and yet all the symptomology of it is evident, or the person is complaining about it. The hypochondria?
Maybe.
That kind of a thing?
Right. Yeah.
That's where you get where you just catch everything.
Yeah.
But it's all in your head kind of thing.
But I also want to be careful, because people that have real problems do get dismissed as faking it sometimes too. So I do want to be careful with that. I know there's people, especially like with the gastroparesis groups I've joined, I've seen a couple people now are talking about trying to get painkillers for their stomach problems. Because, I mean, from what I've read, and it can get really uncomfortable and really painful. And they'll cut them off from their painkillers and stuff like that and tell them they're drug seeking, or they won't give it to them at all because they just don't really understand the disease. And so I want to be careful about that too, because there are people that have needs, and even the doctors don't listen to them and help them.
Absolutely. I'll certainly second that. Because here's the thing about this faking it thing is it's so easy to be judgmental of somebody because of whatever reasoning you might have as to why you think they shouldn't have this illness or disease or condition. And that can be a reflection on you too. So that's something to watch for in terms of our own biases with this and the way we treat people who are, in bad shape or in a bad way. It might well be that there is no physical virus or symptom or thing we can find. It's not symptom, but causative agent of a bacterial nature or a broken bone or something like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're just making it up.
Right.
That's not really what that means, right? Because the fact of the matter is that all pain is in your head. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So, to say somebody's pain isn't real is, you better be really sure what you're talking about before you go throwing accusations like that around at people. So just as a critical thinking point on that, and by the way, Alex, thank you for that super chat. Super appreciated. All right, so just speaking to that.
Yeah, and the weak immune system thing, I don't know if you can just have that by itself, but there's definitely autoimmune diseases. Type 1 diabetes is, and it does weaken your immune system. And so it's easier for me to catch colds and viruses and bacteria and whatever, because it just, that's why I have type 1 diabetes, is because my immune system decided it'd be fun to attack my pancreas.
Yeah.
That's how type 1 diabetes works. So definitely there's other autoimmune disorders and stuff. And having one autoimmune disorder can create more. Because being diabetic, I think it's something like a quarter of type 1s will develop celiac disease, stuff like that. So it's just brings on more stuff. When you have an autoimmune disease, it's just like, oh, here, let's have another autoimmune on top of this one.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, all right. So let's get back to some of this. So kind of a sadder statistic here is, according to the New England Journal of Medicine, people with chronic conditions receive only 56% of recommended preventative health services. So there's a huge lack of people getting the health care that they need in this country. And I think we all know about that. Oh, we have a call. Okay.
We do. So let's go ahead and take this call as well, because it's right on topic here.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello.
Melissa. Hi, Chris. It's
Hello.
Adria.
Hey, Adria.
Hello. So, yeah, I have quite a number of chronic conditions myself, Melissa, and I'm very sorry that you have a new one. That sucks.
Thank you.
So, yeah, sending mental hugs your way.
Thoughts and prayers.
And, yeah, well,
No, it's all
I'm
good.
sorry
I'm
I
just
can't
teasing.
do much more, but
No, of course.
I mean well.
Of course. It is definitely
Anyway.
appreciated.
Yeah, I mean well, if nothing else. Yeah, I have so much to say about this topic, but I did want to dial into the question that somebody asked about fake chronic conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is something very personal to me. I have multiple chronic conditions, and it took me 13 years to get diagnosed with some of them. And I had real problems. Like when I had surgery, they opened me up and, hey, look, she really has a problem. But I had to complain for 13 years for two different ones. One was endometriosis, because they couldn't see anything on any scan, but I couldn't walk for, a day or two every month. And my bleeding was horrendous. And thankfully, I got my hysterectomy. Woo! Love my hysterectomy. Also, I had pinched nerves in my elbows for 13 years. Took 13 years. I asked this one doctor. And I had a ton of scans and a ton of tests. And I asked this one doctor, okay, now if I've done this and I've done this and I've done this and I'm still having pain, what would you recommend I do next? What would you do if you were in my position? And the doctor just up and walked out of the room.
Jeez.
I wasn't yelling at him. I wasn't being inappropriate. I mean, I had some quiet tears streaming down my face because I'm in pain and I'm frustrated that I don't know why I'm in pain. But, I wasn't being inappropriate by any stretch. And those are almost the exact same words I said. So, yeah, I had another doctor tell me I didn't have a nerve on that side of my arm. That doctor, I think, was incompetent.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Wow.
I'm sure you've dealt with doctors like that, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lazy doctors who don't want to look beyond what they think they know everything. Whatever they learned in med school is the end all be all. They don't know everything. And if they don't know it, then it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And yeah, and the thing is, medical technology, it improves every single day. Every year, every day, we're learning new things about the human body. So I would echo what was said earlier about, you better be damn sure before you accuse anybody of faking something.
That's right.
Because the thing is, you are so much more likely to have someone who's telling the truth that medical science hasn't caught up with yet than someone faking an illness. And another little point that I wanted to bring into this conversation is how that thinking someone is faking an illness or whatever plays into federal disability, because I have a very personal battle going on with that. Because my conditions, because I have multiple, my conditions have taken over a decade to name some of them. and to discover others. And I applied for Social Security disability about 10 years ago. But the thing is, I'm young. I was 27 when I first applied. You know, now you can figure out I'm 37. But I was 27 when I first applied. I have a master's degree. As you can tell, I am mildly articulate. And some people would say I look kind of cute. But the thing is, you know, these chronic illnesses and chronic health problems, they don't care your age. They don't care what you look like. They don't care, you know, your educational level. They don't care how articulate you are. And I have had judges ruling against me for 10 years. Wow. First, because I didn't have a name for my problem. Now I have a name, but because previous judges have ruled against me, they don't even read my case anymore. Wow. And that's why I've been able to appeal it over and over and over, because the judge doesn't even read my case anymore. They just say, oh, all these people disapproved it because she couldn't name what her illness was. And so, and they expect people to survive who cannot work physically or mentally, because I have both mental and physical issues that prohibit me from working. I cannot. I have tried. And it is, I feel very ashamed of that. There's a lot of judgment in, you know, the great wide world about not being able to work, as I'm sure you have encountered with your own difficulties. And, you know, they say it's like a character problem, not a physical problem, when your character is just fine. You would do it if you could, but
exactly.
Character has nothing to do with insulin production,
right?
Or in my case, pinched nerves and a host of other issues I have. So, exactly. Yeah, and
it's a bit of a corruption, I think.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a corruption or really awful evolution of this like Protestant Christian, you know, Puritan work ethic. You know, that, you know, we're going to work hard. We're going to, you know, we're going to have an independent attitude. We're going to build our own place because we get kicked out everywhere else, you know. And then we take that and then we use that to bludgeon people with. We take this positive attitude, this independent spirit, this exceptionalism, and we use it to beat people who somehow can't toe the line in our estimation. And this is one of the worst things because I believe that directly contributes to re-traumatizing and strengthening the problem with the person.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than allowing them, because you mentioned judgment and shame and guilt, and these things are never good for your hormone system or your adrenals, et cetera, right? Because it causes additional stress. And, you know, that's where that always seems to raise the symptomology, raise the problem factor, you know.
I remember seeing online
and I'm a Christian, and I'll completely agree with that.
Okay, there we go.
I've been told, just pray more, just do this, just do that. It's like, no, that does not work. Just praise God. No.
Exactly.
I praise God, but for other reasons, not this. Yeah.
I think people too, and you know, they're talking about it a little bit in the chat too. It's like, you know, what you might refer to as an invisible disease where you can't see it. It doesn't look like it's happening. A lot of people think you're not disabled enough. Like you have to be Stephen Hawking or something to be disabled enough for them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that is true. That's how the judicial system works in the disability courts, at least around here.
You know,
they want you to be almost a vegetable.
Well, exactly. And between the court system and the judge, and the court system is probably more reflection of these old school attitudes and our cultural attitudes than it is an independent thing, right? I think the courts are reflecting this sort of Stone Age thinking with this because, you know, back in the day, you know, we didn't even know germs existed. I mean, this is you know, this is a fairly recent idea. So, you know, our whole emotional, cultural baggage that we've been carrying around for thousands of years to blame people who can't, you know, step up, be part of the workforce that's keeping the tribe alive. You know, they're just hanger-ons and charity cases and lazy and all these other things that we we dump on people for this, and it's really we really need to quickly evolve those attitudes out of existence.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's another related attitude, which is if someone, and Melissa, I'm sure you have encountered this a bunch of times. If you can do things one day, but you can't do them the next day, well, why not? You could do it that day. Why can't you do that much the next day?
Exactly. And
yeah.
I've talked with other type ones about this too, and it's like you get used to the low blood sugar, not like in a good way, but you get used to it. So you can start, so you start getting where you think you can do things while you're low that you probably shouldn't be doing, but you do them anyway.
Yep.
And then people see that and think, well, your low must not be that bad. And you're like, no, I'm just stupid for doing this.
That's how I am with chronic pain. Someone will see me do something one day and they're like, well, if you could do that, you could do anything else. I'm like, no, I paid for that for the next week or two.
Exactly.
That was just dumb.
Exactly. They see the feat. They don't see the exchange, the payment you had to pay to pull it off. It's a great way of putting that.
And pain is invisible.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Adria, we're going to let you go because I have another call.
All right.
This was awesome. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this topic, Melissa, and good to hear your voice, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. And just butchering names left, right, and center here. I want to thank you, Couch, for that super chat. Definitely noticed that. Awesome. And I should say this. I've been thinking about this for months, but I haven't really implemented it as a thing. But I've been kind of trying to do it anyway. But if you have questions for us and you don't want to call in, and you really want us to answer that question, put it in a super chat. I will absolutely get to it if it's in a super chat. Okay. It's also easier to see, by the way, significantly. I mean, we even get a little ringy bell, but we have another caller.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to move on with that. So let us take this call. Hello, you are on.
Hello, Chris.
Yes.
Hello, this is Stanley. I just wanted to drop in and share with you guys a success story. Thanks to Chris Shelton's critical thinking, I found a life coach that helped me dealing with my narcissistic abuse from religion. And as a result, what happened was I was working in with the program, and I was dealing with a narcissist in my family, and that narcissist recently gave me a death threat. But because I was working in the program, I had been already practicing healthy ways dealing with these types of situations. I was able to have it resolved legally and healthily. And I just wanted to share that as for encouragement for anyone who's suffering from the narcissistic abuse.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really
So
cool.
you guys know.
Well,
yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing that. Thanks for calling in. It always makes my day when I know I've helped somebody. So I very much am glad. So good. And good on you on applying it.
Yeah.
Because you're the one who had to do the work, right?
Right. Yes.
Good job, man.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
You guys
Thank
have
you.
an awesome day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Cool. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And Hubbard said that Dianetics on the Christina's question there, just since I'm seeing it on the thing about germs and stuff, and you guys are talking about that. Hubbard said that Dianetics complements the germ theory of disease, and that psychosomatic illnesses make up or constitute about 75% of all physical illnesses.
Wow.
And it would be addressed by and cured by Dianetics processing.
Oh,
that was
sure.
his claim.
Totally.
As best I remember it from Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. So, so there you go.
Yeah. Thinking about what Christina was talking about, it's just, I was remembering when I was first diagnosed, they almost didn't diagnose me. my mother's brother, my uncle, is also type 1 diabetic, and that's why she knew what was going on. Like when I started having the symptoms, she was like, this is really familiar, you know, I remember this. And so we went to the doctor, and they weren't going to test me. They were like, we don't think that's it. She just has the flu, you know? And my mom was like, no, we're not leaving until you test her.
Exactly.
So it can be hard to get diagnoses. And that was, 30 years ago, but still,
Yeah. Well, we have to always remember, the lessons of critical thinking are that it is a 24/7 operation in your head. There's never a place or a time or an incident or a context in which critical thinking isn't going to be useful to you. And, when you go into an authority situation where you're reliant on an authority figure, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, a police officer, whatever, teacher, it is imperative that you ask questions, that you make sure that what they're saying or telling you makes sense to you. And I know for a fact that if somebody knows what they're talking about, they can explain it to you in simple terms that you will be able to understand. And if they can't do that, they don't understand it. That is a fact. And that means that that's somebody that you need to grade the level or quality of their information or their diagnosis or analysis or whatever based on how well they can explain it to you. That's actually a pretty good metric to use to decide whether somebody knows what they're talking about or not. So I only stress this because we deal with it in every context in our life, and it's something we have to have the balls to do when we're faced with somebody who is telling us that they know more than we do about ourselves. We want to level that up, and they need to explain that to us so we can get there.
Yeah. And doctors are people too, they make mistakes, but I think they get jaded. I think they see a lot of awful, awful things, and they probably want to be in denial about how awful things are, so that could be part of the problem too. They get cranky, they get tired. I mean, some of these nurses work 12-hour days, doctors work 12-hour days, so it's just like,
that's right.
Who knows?
Oh, absolutely.
What's going on,
Yeah, we jump too quickly to the fundamental attribution error, right? Where we're gonna assume intent, we're gonna assume motivation. Oh, the doctor didn't explain it to me because he's an asshole. Well, maybe, or he didn't explain it to you because you didn't ask. Or he didn't explain it to you because he was in a hurry because he has another appointment, or he had to go to the bathroom, or it could be any number of things.
Yeah, and I think we suffer from a lack of medical people because there are less doctors, there are less nurses, because who wants to spend $200,000 on a friggin' medical school anymore, people don't want to do it. It's not worth it, So I think we have to attract more people to the medical field so we don't have overworked doctors and nurses.
Yeah, exactly. And straighten out. I think we could go a long way towards that also by straightening out the bureaucracy of it. Our healthcare system. It deflates and demoralizes doctors and nurses. Every one that I've talked to about it, which is not like a broad survey. It's not like I've gone around to every every state in the nation or something. But when you consistently are getting the same message or the same answers from people in the medical profession about, well, what should we do about this, or how do we deal with this, or how do we bring the prices down? And one for one, they're telling you, well, it's because it's this crazy for-profit industry with all kinds of vested interests, and don't even get me started on research and how corrupted that process can be. Not all the time, but how it can be. It gets very frustrating for these guys to try to figure out and take the initiative to figure out what they don't know, or how to do it, how to do their jobs better. It's a whole bureaucratic Brazil system. So so it's easy to blame an individual in that and ignore the systemic problems there.
And that's not to say that there aren't bad doctors. Of course there are. There's bad everythings, but
No, they're all good. They're all good. Every single one of them.
Yeah, they're just people. There's all kinds of them.
Exactly. Oh, now we have another call
Oh,
in the
okay.
queue here. All right. Hello, is this Naomi? Nerman.
Yeah, Nerman.
Yes. Hi.
Hi,
Welcome to the
Hello.
show.
I'm calling you from Clearwater.
Oh,
Excellent.
wow.
Welcome. Oh, hi, sunny Clearwater. How's it hanging down there?
It's rough.
All right. Well, what can we help you with today?
Well, I was listening to your show.
Mhm.
I'm an ex-Scientologist,
Mm-hmm.
originally from Boston, Mass. I live in Clearwater, Florida. And I wanted to call you and tell you that you have a wonderful show, you and your wife.
Well, thank you.
And
you.
keep on going with your show. I love it. And I think Hubbard should be exposed for the fraud that it is.
Yep. I agree.
Yes.
Well, we will keep on keeping on.
yeah.
And thank you for calling in and
Keep on
acknowledging us.
keeping on in 2021.
Yeah. Well, we
I
will.
love you guys.
Aw.
Awesome. Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
I've been making comments on your show, and I probably will keep on making my comments. And I love your show, and I don't think it should be called a show. I think it should be called an expose.
I will take it. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Love you, Melissa and Chris.
Aw.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
All right. Oops, cut her off there.
Oops.
Thank you very much for calling in. That was awesome. Always love the acknowledgement. All right. Now I wanted to acknowledge that Sheila's super
Oh.
chat here. She has a question. Hey, Melissa, great topic. How can those of us around chronic illness sufferers support them the best? Sometimes it feels like a pretty helpless situation where most gestures seem empty. That is a great question.
I would just ask them what they need, you know, ask them what they think would help them out. You know, do you need me to just hug you and let you cry for a little while? Do you need to just have a bitch fest tonight? Do you need help with something, you know, like, you know, make them a meal or something, you know, just like help them out if they need help. If, you know, they have a chronic illness where maybe they have physical pain, you know, you can help them in that way, you know, do things for them that they can't do. But just ask them. Yeah, just ask them what they need, because everybody's a little different in what they want. Different people have different levels of pride about it, you know. So I would say that's the best thing, is just to ask them what they want and need.
Excellent. And if I will pitch in for my side, I will say, listen more than talk. Really listen. I mean, it's active listening. It's really like hearing what they're saying. And I don't know if this is a guy-girl thing maybe, but also, you know, it's not on you to solve their problem. Right? Sometimes just, you know, being a sounding board for them to rant, rave, you know, say what's wrong, say how they're feeling about it. You know, kind of lower the anxiety level a little bit by getting it all off the chest and being able to just bitch and moan and complain, and maybe even things that aren't necessarily, you know, just emotional.
Yeah.
Just let it happen. You know, just let it go, and be supportive. You know, that way. I can't stress enough the importance of listening.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely listen. I can't speak for everybody with chronic illness, but one thing that annoys me is when people tell me how to handle my disease or conditions. It's like, you know, I already know what I'm supposed to be doing or not doing, and even if I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, that's my problem.
Right. Right. But everybody's got their own thing. So, so it's really talking to the person in front of you. And you can never really go wrong listening.
Yeah.
CNC 97, thank you very much for your super chat. Appreciate that. Okay, now we've got 2 calls in the queue, and I think one of them, yes, we have Travis and we have another one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip Travis, and I know you're going to understand Travis, and see what this other one is, because it might be directed to you, and I want to take that one first. So, hello, is this Mary? Hello?
Hello?
Not hearing anyone there. All right. Well, we're going to encourage Mary to call back.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to drop that one, and we're going to pick up Travis here. All right. Hello, Travis.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
It's good to talk to you both.
Yeah. Good to hear from you.
Right. Well, I hope Mary can call back. This is a very sobering topic tonight.
Yeah.
I have a Scientology question.
Bring it.
Okay. Now, Chris, did you ever hear of a international management bulletin called the Spirit of Play?
I have heard of Hubbard's writings on the Spirit of Play. I'm not remembering the management bulletin on it, but go ahead and refresh my memory.
Well, it came out in June of 1985, and I think perhaps we're talking about the same thing. What is your knowledge of Hubbard's writings about the Spirit of Play? I only found a very short document.
Yeah, it is. It's actually kind of funny. I have a lot of history with this one. The Spirit of Play is a quote from a Philadelphia doctorate course lecture, if I'm remembering the series right. It's 1952, and December 1952, where he talks about how the universe surrenders to a spirit of play, how insouciance and non-seriousness, and how sort of laughing in the face of the gods is the way to, is the right attitude to have. And that by, it's, if you want to get something done, you don't give it to these serious blokes, who are really solid citizens, because they can't think outside the box, and they're not very initiative or very originative or communicative. So with Spirit of Play, it's light, it's airy, it's woohoo, it's more how a Thetan really is in their native state, right? And so this is, I'm paraphrasing a lot here because I don't remember the exact quote, because it ends up being about a page long. And I actually did a whole poster of the Spirit of Play, the full Spirit of Play quote, when I was in Santa Barbara. I did it with what's that? Yeah, the calligraphy. I used to do that, and I did this whole poster size thing of the whole quote for the org. So the Spirit of Play was something that I kept in the front of my mind a lot while I was being abused, because it was sort of the counter to the awful of the reality of my situation. And so it was very, and I don't say that in a good way. It was Hubbard's way of creating these dichotomies in your mind that would keep you going and keep you hoping that it could get better. So that's what I have to say about that. How's that?
Well, so I thank you for that explanation. I'd like to point out that when you had said that the Spirit of Play is what the universe surrenders to, that's actually a direct quote from the document itself.
Yeah, there's a few in there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I'd like to point out to you is this. Mm-hmm. It's the most ridiculous thing. Scientology is all about being uptight and people being uber mean to each other and complete,
that's right,
jerkwads, and doing exactly the opposite of what Hubbard said to do.
That's right.
In this instance.
Well, see,
now,
and this
did
was,
you ever?
You could actually beat people with this. This is how bad it would get. Is you could be yelling at somebody, your stats and your this and your that and your out ethics, and Your biggest problem is you're serious all the damn time. Why don't you ever lighten up? You know, spirit of play, motherfucker. How about it? You know, how about we see some of that in your post, in your attitude, in your job, so you could actually weaponize this. I mean, it got that bad.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Now, that what you just explained to me actually is consistent with one of the lines in the document itself that says no one can possibly be serious and win in this universe.
That's right.
Now, it doesn't define what the word win means. Like contextually, it doesn't say what they're. Of course, it probably means statistics go up. You're getting clear. You're whatever else.
That's right.
And it's to be serious now, or excuse me, not to be serious. Which Hubbard himself was a complete loon job. Which
yeah. If you see the problem in that culture is that if you try to demonstrate that attitude, if you are flippant, if you show disregard for the rules or procedure or the seriousness of it all, then two things will happen. One, people are going to yell and scream at you because you piss them off because they don't feel that way. And here you are having a good time and they're not having a good time. So, you know, fuck you very much. And then two, they'll just pull out, keeping Scientology working. And, you know, and a few other references from Hubbard where he says straight up, this is a deadly serious activity. And so this is the double bind, right? This is what I go on and on about, the double binds, because this is such a great example of how those double binds work in Scientology.
now, please define for the audience real quick what a double bind is.
Oh, yeah, I've done a whole podcast on it. I mean, double binds is the contradictory ideas that can exist that kind of catch-22s. They lock you in. They both mutually exclusive ideas that both must be true at the same time. It causes tremendous amounts of cognitive dissonance and stress.
All right, so, and I'd like to point out to the audience that Chris has done a video on this, and it's extraordinary. It's a little on the long side, but trust me, I've watched it more than once just to get a firm handle on what he's talking about.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, well, so, and honestly, I read this in this document today, or a couple of days ago. I've read it a couple of times. I thought this was like some sort of April Fool's joke.
Right.
Because I've watched enough of your videos to know that, you know, this is like a Soviet gulag, which is working in the Sea Org. And for Hubbard to say that everything is all about play, like, you know, having like a childlike, he didn't say childlike approach, it is like, you know, trying to sell somebody the Brooklyn Bridge. It's absurd.
That's right.
In fact, you've mentioned how it works with staff members so far.
Mm-hmm.
One line in the document itself refers to, well, actually three, I believe, actually say that pre-clears who aren't making any progress, the problem with them is they're too serious.
That's right. They're too serious.
Okay.
Yep. Because seriousness also, here's another comparative that is used in Scientology about seriousness, is that, remember, in Scientology, your trauma, your stress is actual physical energy. Condensed matter, you know, or condensed energy becomes mass. And you're carrying around, according to Hubbard, you're carrying around all this stress and all this trauma as this insisted, you know, solidified charge that actually has weight. It weighs you down. And Hubbard says that these serious, solid citizens, he's sort of using this in this sort of double entendre to be like they're very massy because of all of the case that they have sitting on them. And this is why they barely move the needle on an e-meter. It's so hard to audit a serious person. And he really went out of his way to try to sort of position this way.
Honestly, it sounds to me like with Scientology, it doesn't matter what you say, you're going to be wrong.
Exactly.
No matter what.
Exactly. That's the whole point of the double binds, is that no matter what you do, you're screwed. That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I thank you for answering these questions tonight, and a humble request for both of you, especially for Melissa there, is that perhaps in the future you could do a follow-up or a volume 2 or a second segment or another episode further discussing this topic tonight, because it sounds like you've really touched on something that people have things to say about, not only calling in wise, but comments. So consider it. I'm simply, floating that idea out for you to talk about it. Okay.
Absolutely, man.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Good.
All right.
All right.
All
Talk
right.
to you.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right. And, okay, now I want to check in. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Because he did talk about it being kind of a downer topic, I did want to say something about hope that I did find. It is an integral part of coping with chronic illness. Maintaining hope is key for long-term survivors of things like HIV and cancer. Healthy coping does not mean positive thinking necessarily, though. Not the like toxic positive thinking stuff that is out there, but just the ability to calm your anxiety down and be able to discuss your anxiety and fears and losses and sadness and the grief that comes when you first get diagnosed with something. Everything's going to change and you have to go through that grieving process, but you also have to have hope. It's going to get better. You can, cope with it,
Exactly.
But not the positive thinking like that. Like I said, that's kind of toxic, where you're like avoiding confronting the real problems. That's not good. Where you're just supposed to be positive all the time. No.
Everything's awesome.
Yeah.
Everything's wonderful.
No, you got to get that out. You got to talk to somebody, whether it's a friend or a therapist or your parents or whatever. You got to talk to somebody about what's going on, because then you can get all that off your chest.
Exactly. Yeah. Toxic positivity. That's the thing. Anything can be taken to an extreme. Mm-hmm. Anything. But at the same time, you do always want to be putting forward, it doesn't cost anything to think positive thoughts.
Right.
Not magical thinking, but just.
Yeah, just like, this can get better. I can deal with this.
Exactly. Sort of a
kind of thing. Yeah.
Self-affirming.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we're going to wrap up. Now, we got a couple other calls in the queue, and I am going to say we're going to cut the show because I think we need to keep our time management under control on the show, too. And I think I want to keep it to like an hour. And we are going to wrap up with our things here. So I'm going to ask the callers who are in the queue right now. I apologize. I appreciate you guys calling in and having the patience to wait and talk with us. And Travis's suggestion was a really good one, and this has had a lot more feedback and commentary than I expected, which I'm very happy about, because I love giving you the floor, and I want to do this more. Mm-hmm. So I kind of apologize for that, but at the same time, we have to do our time management, or it could get out of hand.
Yeah.
Just gotta define my boundaries. All right. So that all being said, thanks, guys. Because we could go on forever. That is definitely true. And there have been some great questions in the comments and stuff. I know I didn't get to all of them. But let's wrap up for this week, and we will carry on again next week. All right, guys. On that note, I will tell you as I pull these out. These are critical thinking cards of logical fallacies and cognitive biases. While I am shuffling the deck here, I will let you know that we have a podcast in the can for tomorrow. I got to talk to Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh is a former congressman. He was a House of Representatives member for 2 years. He is an active talk radio host and a never Trumper, or was a Trumper, and now he's not. And he's got very, very interesting things to say from the conservative side. This was a Tea Party congressman. And I got him on my show to talk to him about Trump, cult thinking, politics, the stuff I love talking about. And I was very happy with our hour-long talk. So that posts tomorrow. And then, of course, we'll have Q&A as usual on Sunday. All right. Pick a card, any card.
Availability heuristic.
Okay. Let's see what the availability heuristic is. You know, this word heuristic always bugs me. I can never remember what it means. Your judgments are influenced by what springs most easily to mind. Oh, I've never done this one.
Well, it came to my mind. It must be true, right?
All right. How recent, emotionally powerful, or unusual your memories are can make them seem more relevant. This, in turn, can cause you to apply them too readily. Try to gain different perspectives and source statistical information. Okay? So, availability heuristic. Your judgments are influenced by what springs most easily to mind. You know, I get caught up on this one all the time, actually. I get caught out on this one because I will think, oh, I just saw a study. Oh, I just read. Oh, I saw a TV show. I saw a documentary. And then I'm forgetting or not aware of, you know, three other sources of information that actually conflict with that, and I'm in the wrong. But I remembered it, so I'm sure that I'm right because it was, you know, what came to mind. So there you go. All right, guys, good times. Yeah, I need to word clear it. That's right. I'm gonna use it in a lot of sentences. Okay, that all being said, let's go ahead and wrap up. I'm surprised, by the way, not this week, but I guess a couple weeks ago, we talked about the Sons of Sam documentary, and we watched it. We endured watching it. And I'm just going to say very quickly, because we're not going to do a whole show on it, that I did not find Maury Terry's arguments convincing.
No.
I thought the Scientology connection stuff was fascinating. The Process Church, definitely real. I'm not implying or saying that that's not factual. It's just the connections with Son of Sam are tenuous at best.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's what I've got to say on that. And that all being said, let's wrap up for this week. See you guys.
Bye.